I'm Pakistani background. My parents emigrated here in the late 60s. I was born in the 70s. I'm one of 8 children, so I've got 7 siblings, 3 brothers and 4 sisters. So when we were growing up, it was about being tight-lipped. So you never shared anything outside that was bad or perceived to be bad, what some people might judge you on. And because my dad had a bit of mental health in the 80s, we were told not to tell anyone, to be quiet about it. So when things started happening to me, I was embarrassed. I thought if I told anyone, they'd judge me. Maybe I'd get criticised for it, or I'd be shunned. So I just held it to myself.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sheri Jacobson, and this is THERAPYLAB, a podcast dedicated to demystifying therapy, mental health, and the art of well-being. In this episode, we are joined by founder of the wellness movement and Be More You running group, Sha Hussain, to talk about his personal experiences. I'd like to get more inside a runner's brain because you know me, I can't run a couple blocks without complaining. I'm sure, like anything, I'd be able to do it with application and practice. But what does it give to you, or what was kind of the main kick of running for you?
To be honest, there's quite a few different reasons why I run. I think probably when I first started running in the early noughties was for fitness, to lose weight, because I had a bit of an unhealthy lifestyle. But fast forward to the current day, and I think it's for my mental health I run. It sort of improves, the way I think, the way I feel emotionally and physiologically. Again, with the fitness side as well. And it makes me feel like I'm achieving something. So like you mentioned that I run a lot of marathons around the world. So my running takes me traveling. It gets me into running communities. So I make friends. They feel like family too. So it's about meeting people from around the world, people from all walks of life. So it sort of enriches my life in a lot of ways.
And I'm still trying to drill down into what allows you to go for long distances of time and not be bored or not find it punishing on your body. What is the real appeal?
I'd be lying if I said that was true. I think there are times when you're running and you're like, I can't do this and I don't want to do this. But I think when you found the reason why you're training for a specific race or why you run, you sort of hark back to that. Like, I'm running to be fit, I'm running to run faster, it's for my well-being. And so as long as you know why you're running, that sort of helps you complete that journey and get to where you need to get to.
Now, you are Mr. Wellbeing. You have so much of your work is now wrapped up in it, but it always hasn't been the case. You had a long career in digital media as well. So if you can take me right back to the beginning and talk about your earlier experiences. What was it like growing up, and what did you think you wanted to do career-wise?
Growing up, that's a long time ago. So I grew up in Hackney, East London. Growing up there, it was it was tough. It was a tough neighbourhood. I didn't know what I wanted to be at a young age, but then I started watching football. When I was about 8, 9. So I watched the Division 1 football it was then, which is now the Premier League. And Liverpool was my team, so I used to watch them on the box every weekend, and during the week whenever I had the opportunity, they were the main team. So I wanted to be a footballer. Arsenal was the local team, so the rest of the family supported Arsenal, but I was supporting Liverpool. And I wanted to be a footballer, but studying at school, I studied as much as I could, but football was always what I wanted to do, but that didn't work out for me. I wasn't obviously good enough for that. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do. I sort of fell into a course in fashion at the London College of Fashion. I did that for a year, moved on to a higher course in fashion and European business and finance. Did that for a few years. And then when I sort of fell out of that, I went into fashion. My friend's company was called Neargold in Hackney. They were a trimmings company, so they supplied trimmings to the fashion trade. So I worked there for about 2 to 3 years. And then when I left there, I found a job in digital media. It was as an accounts executive, so in the finance department. So part of my course of European business had those elements of finance. So I sort of hopped into that, into the digital media game in 1999. So I was working there for 15 years, 16 years even. And I think about 9 of those years I was working for different companies. And in 2009, I started my own business in media. But during the course of working in the media, I found it wasn't very conducive to a healthy lifestyle. The end of the 90s was the beginning of the sort of dot-com era, the boom, and all these digital sort of agencies were coming up, Arse Jeeves, Google, they were all starting up at that time. So there were lots of budgets out there. So working for a digital media company, and we had Arse Jeeves and Google, for example, were coming in to supply us with their services. So we were selling those on to our clients, so sort of marketing avenues online. And there were just parties. Parties were like 2, 3 times a week. So, myself and my colleagues would go out and have fun. We'd go out drinking, unhealthy sort of lifestyle, smoking. And I was like sort of coming up to my 30s, around 2004, 2005. I was about 30, 32 by then, and wanted to do something about my health because it was not deteriorating massively, but I was putting on weight. I lived in Hackney in a 4-story house, so my bedroom was on the top floor. So after night out, I'd walk to the top floor, and I was tired and out of breath, and I was like, I shouldn't be feeling like this. It was because of my unhealthy lifestyle. And so that's sort of first realised like I was living an unhealthy life, and I started running. That's the first time I started running properly, and I've done my first marathon in 2006, the London Marathon, with a friend of mine, Justin. So he sort of put me up to it initially. He was saying, I want to run the London Marathon, let's get fit. We're not getting any younger, and we're getting these round bellies. And we're like, what are we going to do about this? So that's how I got into running. And I think around 2009, I left the company where I was working at the time and started my own business. And and I was quite successful early on in my business, and that sort of afforded me the luxury of getting a PT.
That was also in the digital space.
Yeah, I was in the digital space. I had my own business. I ran that until 2015. Started in 2009, and got myself a PT at the gym. Got a regular gym membership. Got in touch with a nutritionist. Learned about nutrition, and that sort of started changing how I felt, and got me really into fitness. And and then I just started. I started losing weight, became stronger, had a bit more of a body which was athletic. And I sort of felt like a footballer, but I wasn't a footballer, even though that's what I wanted to be when I was younger. But my body started looking a bit better when I was more comfortable with how I looked. So I ran that business for 6 years till 2015, and by that stage I'd realised I'd been in marketing for 16 years, and I sort of asked myself the question: Is this it now? Is this going to define your life? And it was like, no, I want to change. I want to do something that's going to change people's lives. Like I've changed my life with like health and fitness and well-being. And all my life in my career, I'd promoted products and services of businesses and selling a lifestyle to the public and to society. And it wasn't necessarily what they needed. So I thought now I can maybe do something different. So because I was from the health and fitness, it was sort of a natural progression for me when I left media to look into health and well-being, and that's when I started my business in health and well-being. So 2016, end of 2016, I started the wellness movement.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So when I first started out, because I was a runner, it was about promoting running and yoga to companies.
And in fact, at one point it was called something with Run Yoga Run, was that it?
The business was called Run Yoga Run. One of our first clients was Stella McCartney. We worked with other quite well-known brands as well in the city. And it was just the beginning of the journey, and running and yoga is what we offered. Because I'd sort of been training in the fitness and well-being scene myself since 2009, I'd built up a lot of contacts in that area. And then I decided to sort of expand the offering a bit, change the name. A year later, I changed the name to the Wellness Movement. And then we started offering a whole plethora of services within the health and wellbeing sector. So things like mental health, and you obviously came on board and helped with that. You've done a number of talks for us, and you still do on occasion.
Indeed.
Nutrition, meditation, and physical activities, fitness. So yeah, we did a whole lot of work in that area. But getting into that area was great. Had a few good wins. Was working with some big clients, and it was fantastic. However, because I was so used to success and just working with like really big clients, it was like sort of in my makeup to be doing that. But I just found it was slow when I started my new business, because I started on my own and there wasn't a lot out there. I had to learn everything. I didn't know what I was doing in a way. It was sort of like winging it a bit. It was more, it was a dream and an ambition that I wanted to make a difference in society, like have a positive impact. So it was like learning on the job, trying to get clients, build the business from the ground up, build a foundation. And then within 6 months of starting that business, in like around June, I'd say June 2017, I started having these started impacting me and my health, so my mental health. So I never really knew what mental health was prior to that stage. I know my dad suffered from mental health in the 80s, and when he did, it was a bit taboo, we wasn't allowed to talk about it. So for me, it was about, okay, so I'm going through these sort of feelings. So it's like sort of a weird sensation in the stomach. It was like a feeling of worry. I didn't know what I was worrying about. I just thought it was just a weird sensation, but it just felt like that. Other feelings were, I sort of felt like the weight of the world on my shoulders, some dark clouds above my head, like sort of pushing me down. So my routine would be to get up in the morning, I'd go for a run. So that made me feel a bit better. Come home, have my breakfast. I'd go to my desk to make some phone calls, and I'd feel like, no one wants to talk to you today. So I'd jump back into bed. So I'd stay in bed all day, hoping that feeling would go away. And so I'd have good days and bad days. I'd be checking my emails on my phone while I was in bed as well, to see what was happening, like if any emails were coming in from potential clients, etc. And when they would, I would get up and make an extra effort on my laptop and reply to them, and just so the business was ticking along, but my mental health was struggling, and I hid that for 2 years. So around October 2018, so I fast forwarded quite a bit here, but during that period, I was suffering on and off, and I didn't tell anyone. And there was one day when I was sitting at my desk, and I said to myself, "What if this is as good as it gets, and I'm not going to feel any better than this?" And so that was quite a worry for me. So then, by chance, what happened was in October 2018, I met a breath coach. So he wanted to come on board with the wellness movement and sort of practice some workshops with us, with our clients. So when we sat down and we introduced ourselves to one another, and we spoke about ourselves, and then we spoke about what happiness is. So when we started speaking about happiness, I realised I wasn't very happy. So I just opened up to Richie and said, "Look, I haven't been very happy."
Yeah, this is Richie Bostock,
Yeah,
who's
Richie Bostock,
the breath coach.
the breath
guru.
coach. Yeah. And I just told him a little bit. I didn't tell him too much because obviously I didn't know him that well. But it was easy to open up to someone I didn't know. And after I had that meeting with him, I jumped on the train to go back home, and I cried. But it was tears of happiness that I was sort of released. I sort of released out of this something, that cage that I was in, that I sort of put myself into, because I hadn't spoken about how I felt. And then on the way home, I cried, and then I got home, and then I messaged a few friends and said, I'm not feeling okay. And that helped sort of relieve some more stress from me, made me feel more at ease. And I sat down with my mum and my brother that week, and I basically told them, what I'd been going through. We had a discussion about from my childhood to where I am today, how I got there, and me and my mum. Yeah. So my mum was listening and my brother was listening. So my mum would say, "What can we do to help you?" From there to, when you were young, you was a bit of a troublemaker. It's your fault. So all these things she was saying to me, and I was saying to my mum, "I'm not telling you this because I'm trying to blame anyone. Yeah. I'm just telling you who your son is, and this is what
Yeah.
I've been through all my life,
Yeah.
and so this is who I am today and why I am who I
Yeah.
am.
And what was that like for you to open up in that way?
Yeah, I think it was easy
Mm.
because I'd hidden it for so long and suffered for so long, and then I just realised that wasn't the way to do it. And luckily I met Richie that day, and we had that
Mm.
conversation about happiness, and that sort of
Mm.
got me out. And I guess it was
Yeah.
like a week or two before when I was asking myself that question: what if it's as good as
Yeah.
it gets? So
Yeah.
it sort of just happened by chance where I
Mm.
just got to that stage. So maybe it was meant to be.
How did that conversation about happiness unfold? What is happiness to you?
Yeah, happiness is about being content for me. It's about being happy with what you have and who you are.
Mm.
And I don't think you can gain happiness from another person. They can make you happier maybe a bit, but you need to be content and happy yourself already with your life,
Mm.
maybe your values, and what you're doing with your life. I guess
Mm.
I guess that's what it is.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Therapy Lab. If you feel ready to transform your life with therapy, we're offering 10% off a first session with any therapist on harleytherapy.com to our listeners. Just use the code TherapyLab when you book your session on harleytherapy.com. You mentioned opening up to your mom and your brother and talking around childhood. Were there any events during childhood that you think kind of compounded or led to some of the difficulties that you had later on?
Yeah, I guess so because it's I was like I'm Pakistani background. My parents emigrated here in the late '60s. I was born in the '70s. I'm one of 8 children, so I've got 7 siblings, 3 brothers and 4 sisters. So when we were
Mm.
growing up, it was about being tight-lipped. So you never shared anything outside that was bad or perceived to be bad, what some people might judge you on. And because my dad had a bit of mental health in the '80s, we were told not to tell anyone, to be quiet
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So when things started happening to me, I was embarrassed. I thought if I told anyone, they'd judge me, and maybe I'd get criticised for it, or I'd be shunned.
Mm.
So I just held it to myself.
Mm. And you held it quite well because we had known each other during that time, and I have to admit that I wasn't aware that you were going through what you had until you opened up.
Yeah,
And that was quite a revelation, and I think it brought us closer in a way because we were able to sort of obviously share common ground. I'm very open about my difficult past, and it seemed as if it was more like real and authentic. What was it like for you to have opened up subsequent friends and connections?
yeah. I think it was a relief, and all my lays were, my fears were allayed because everyone sort of was okay with it,
Mm.
and yeah, it was supportive. People were checking in on me after that. It was much easier than I thought it would be,
Mm.
and I'm part of a running community, and there's hundreds of
Yeah.
people in this running community.
Mm.
So Rundem Crew, I joined Rundem Crew, which is a massive running community in London.
Mm-hmm.
They're very pro mental health, like they like supporting the community with mental health, and part of London Crew, there's another thing that's called Track East, which is like the East London track community, and that's part of the London Crew community. So there was a guy called Rob, and he basically, around World Mental Health Day, which is like the 10th of October 2018, when I was going through my struggle and just sort of coming out and opening up about it, he'd basically, he went online to talk about how it's okay to be not okay and how he sometimes suffers from social anxiety. So he's much younger than me. So when I saw him do that,
Mm.
it sort of made me feel, well, why are you holding on to things when
Mm.
this young guy is, he's a good example of what you could do. Because if you're speaking out, you're probably helping others at the same time. So I went and had a chat
Mm.
with Rob after track one evening on a Thursday night. We normally go to a pub called the Rusty Bike in Mile End. So I had a conversation with him and told him what I'd been going through. And I said, if you're opening up online and I'm telling you what's happened with me, how many more people in our community are probably suffering with mental health in silence? And how about if we get together and try and do something about that? And that's when something else came about, which is called Be More You.
Yes.
So we created an initiative to support runners with mental health called Be More You. So
Yeah, you can elaborate on that as well, if you like.
so I'll just first of all say, so when I met
Yeah.
Rob and we had this conversation about helping others, we recruited a few more people within that running community to support that initiative. And initially there was about 6 of us, and we just meet up on a weekly basis to talk about how we're feeling. We check in with each other. We do that wellbeing index number, 1 to 10,
Yep.
and just sort of it's like a temperature gauge in the room, like how everyone's feeling, and just talk about how the week's been today. So that was just initially how we started, and we called it Be More You. So Be More You is about being your authentic self, and we've created a safe space where you can come and be yourself without fear of judgment or criticism, and it's a place to come to listen, be heard, or just be present in the moment. And in that sort of environment, we've sort of come up with like different exercises we can do to improve our mental health. So things like wordplay. So you just choose a word, for example, predetermined words for that day, and then people describe what those words mean to them and how they describe them. And then maybe some active listening. Maybe some gratitude exercises, or just like topical sort of conversation about what's going on, in the world today. So we've been running that for about a year and a half now, every week on a Tuesday night. And after about 2 months, when we first started, we started inviting other runners from the running community. And since then, we've been doing more than just meeting up once a week. We've been traveling the world, going to other global running communities and sharing knowledge and educating and empowering them to help their members to enhance their mental health as well.
Which is just phenomenal work. And again, it's very basic concept of just bringing yourself, sharing your experiences, and having that safe space in which to open up and be together. What do you think is how does the community work? What's the value in the community that it brings, as opposed to, we can talk a little bit about your thoughts later on therapy, which is generally speaking a one-on-one, but what is that community aspect? How does that contribute to a person's well-being, do you think?
I think, for example, if we're talking about the running community, there's people from all walks of life that come to that running community. And the thing that binds them together is inclusivity. So because it's inclusive, everyone feels welcome, and so there's no barriers, and you can just come and be yourself, and you can be there and not be judged, and you're going to make friends. And for me, it's like it's more than friends. The people that I've met in that community, I've been a member over 4 years. I see it like an extended family, and they've got your back. You can talk to them. They're not going to judge you, and we support one another in more ways than one.
Yeah, which is just so powerful. And you've taken it to the corporate spaces as well.
Yeah, I've taken the safe space to the corporates to see how that would work.
Yeah.
I thought, this concept's been working quite well in the running community, and because it's so simple, maybe it could work, in the corporate world. And we've done a couple of workshops with a couple of banks so far, and we've got some more interest from other organisations across, several sectors. And it's going really well. It's been well received.
And obviously, my interest in the workspace, workplace arena is a very strong one. And you, when I first saw you organize wellness weeks for companies, I was just sort of lit up as to how you can bring in external activities as well as speakers to try and enhance corporate work style, corporate lifestyle and culture. What's an example of a typical wellness week? What are the kinds of things that you include in that?
Yeah, it depends generally on the organisation. They sort of have predetermined what sort of activities that they want to run that week. And for us, obviously, we work across like 5 main pillars of wellness. So, we've got mental health, we've got nutrition, we've got meditation, we've got recreational activities as well, and financial well-being. So companies will approach us and they'll just say, we're running a wellness week, and these are the sort of activities we're looking to run. How can you support us in that way? And, wellness weeks have been going for quite a while now. A lot of companies are actually moving away from those now. And it's more about having something that's more robust and it's something that's throughout the year rather than just
Yeah.
1 week of wellness.
Yeah.
Because I think in the beginning it worked quite well.
Yeah.
It was like a good gesture to have.
Yeah.
And some companies will still have that, and that's perfectly fine. But it's more about what are we doing overall across the whole year to keep those touch points for their staff. That's important. But yeah, generally speaking, for wellness weeks, it could be anything from an origami class to a talk about mental health, to a nutritional workshop with some demos of how to make some smoothies or some healthy shakes.
And we've also exhibited together. There were three conferences in the past year. Employee Benefits Live, there was This Can Happen, and Mad World. What are your observations about mental health in the workplace from speaking to delegates there, as well as the wellness movement work that you're doing? Any themes or any observations that you have of what's
Yeah, I
current?
think obviously we've been hearing out there in the press and in the big wide world and in the corporate world, like how important mental health is, how 1 in 4 people suffer from mental health in a year. And it's about how do we give mental health the same importance as physical health, because physical health, people will go and see a doctor. Mental health, most people will probably hide it. People are trying to change that in the corporate world as well as in the outside world. And I think with these conferences that we're going to, they're shining the light on that, and people are telling personal stories that are in the corporate world, talking about what they've gone through. So the more higher up somebody is in an organisation, I think they can change that culture more within their organisation. And I think there's a lot of good work being done, at these conferences in that regard. But I think more so is what's needed is we need to drill down a bit further. And like you get these physical health checks at companies, I think mental health checks is something that needs to happen too. And I think that's the way it's going. So
Preemptive stuff.
yeah, preemptive stuff, and especially with like mental health first aiders, that's a big topic. A lot of companies are making their staff mental health first aiders. Like generally speaking, some companies are doing 1 in 10 employees, some are doing 1 in 100. There's no actual benchmark as per se, but that's what's going on at the moment. But what concerns me is how are these mental health first aiders being taken care of as well. So what can we do to support these people? So people like ourselves and yourself are looking at making solutions a bit more preemptive to support the people that are making a difference in the workplace, as well as just helping people that suffer from mental health in general.
And I'm super proud of your achievement. You got an award by the London Mayor, and you work on the London Healthy Workplace Charter, accrediting organisations. Do you want to talk a little bit about the work that's involved and what you've learned and are learning from it?
Yeah, I joined the London Healthy Workplace Charter in March 2018. So I've been working with them almost 2 years. And my role is a verifier. So the London Healthy Workplace Charter, which is incidentally changed its name now to the London Healthy Workplace Award.
Oh, even more of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Or just one word less.
Yeah, so basically the purpose of that is to get businesses on the ball with health and well-being. So they have some standards. So generally they've got mental health, corporate support for well-being, and a few other different areas within well-being, like nutrition, physical fitness. And there's a standard which companies can sort of attain. So there's a commitment standard, there's a medium standard, and then there's an excellent standard. And I think they're sort of changing the names of that now as well. So my role as a verifier is once companies go through a process with the Mayor of London's office through a health lead from their local borough, they sort of get put forward for the award, and then I'm one of the interviewers. So when companies come to the Mayor of London's award, I'll interview them to see that they've met all the criteria to sort of attain that award. And if I feel they haven't attained that criteria, then I'll help motivate them and the next steps, what they'll need to do in order to achieve that award. And then I just put them forward for the role. And obviously I'm on a panel, so there's generally 2 to 3 people interviewing a company at a time. And the award I got was for my work in my first year in recognition for my commitment to working hard, with that sort of award and helping companies, advising companies that this award exists and your company should apply for this award. There's many benefits. It's not just about getting the award, it's knowing that your organisation is set up to improve the health and well-being of your staff. And with that comes a lot of benefits.
And you're just so much. You're doing so much. You're so busy. How are you managing your wellness overall? Do you feel you've got the time to get the balance right, and any extra things that you do besides the physical exercise and diet?
Yeah, I found for fast, effective relief, I slow down. So I think slowing down, taking more time for myself, not filling a diary. So having gaps in my diary during the week, especially in the evenings, where I don't have any set plans. I used to just fill it up and always be busy moving on to the next moment and the next moment. I found that wasn't very conducive for my mental health. You know, always rushing around and trying to get from A to B and then to C to D.
Yeah.
And now it's more about taking care of myself more. So self-care, being kind to myself, and that helps me.
Do you need reminders of that? I mean, is it easy to just place holders in your diary and to slow down, or is that also sometimes a challenge?
I think at the moment it's working well because I've sort of made that conscious decision. And as I mentioned earlier, because I haven't been running as much as I do, so I've been able to focus on different areas of my life. And one of the areas is obviously like different skills like swimming and the diving, and focusing more on my business, for example, and then spending time with the family. That's good as well. And with the running community, I guess I still obviously interact with them, obviously a bit less now because I'm not running as much, but then obviously I've made a lot of friends, so I see them quite frequently. But I think it's important to have time to yourself, and you can be spontaneous, so you can always go and see someone or plan an activity at last minute.
I also know you're an avid reader. What do books do for you?
Books, what do? They empower me, they give me skills, they help me. Well, I learn a lot from books, and I'm a sort of person that when I read a book I sort of implement what I read. So I really believe, a great believer in that. And recently I've been reading, well, one of the first books I read recently, about 3 years ago, was How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's quite a famous book from the 30s, and they haven't changed it. It's still relevant today. So I found that to be a great book of trying to understand how people operate and how to get what you want in a good way.
Yes, in a good way.
In
It
a good
doesn't
way.
sound as bad as the title is, and it's a book that I've read countless times, but I do find very valuable as well.
And
Yeah.
other books I've read recently are emotional intelligence. So I think that's quite key to, you know, there's some key components about emotional intelligence. It's about having some self-awareness, self-regulation, being more empathetic, having some social skills, and having a motivation. So reading that book helped me a lot, you know, after what I've been through as well. It sort of reinforces the things that you need to have. So it's not always about you. It's about how you approach others and how you treat others. And emotional intelligence is key to that.
I love the fact that you read and we get to swap book recommendations frequently. What is your relationship to social media? Because you're very present, active on it most of the time. I mean, I'm not always on it, so I don't know if you're busy or not. But just tell us a little bit about what that does for you and how it is.
Yeah, I think recently I've been very good, but I've had an up and down relationship with social media. There's been times where I feel I overuse it, and it sort of messes with my head a little bit. But in terms of like what you read in the press, like some people look at, you know, people are posting their best life, so to speak. And yeah, I think when I was first posting, I was posting a lot of highlights. It's my social media accounts for my running mainly. So it's running and what I eat. So it's my lifestyle. And it is actually quite true. What I put in there is who I am. But I feel I wasn't putting enough of the bad stuff, because life isn't all good. It's good and bad. It's like up and down. So I think I was only showing one side, but more recently I've been showing other sides as well. But I think I'm actually using social media much less now. I was posting like once a day about a year ago, and in the last few months I probably post once a month.
And that feels better for
Yeah,
you.
and I actually
Yeah.
monitor my time on social media. So, because with your mobile phone now, it shows you your screen time. So I regularly monitor my screen time to ensure I'm not overusing my social media.
Great. So for the final bit, because this is a workshop we have done together, digital detox, any tips for the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I guess we can all get stuck in social media, and I think some things what we can do is maybe make time. Well, give yourself a limit of how much time you want to spend on social media. I think that's quite important, and then maybe think about how much you do use social media, and if you cut down, what new skill you could learn. So, for example, with me now diving, for example, I'm learning to dive. Maybe I can learn a new language if I'm not using social media as much as I am. And I guess when you get home, set some boundaries. So maybe at 10 o'clock, the last time you look at your phone could be 10 o'clock. Get yourself an alarm clock instead of bringing your phone into the bedroom. Most people will wake up with the phone next to them, and the first thing they do in the morning is look at their phone. So, and the last thing they do at night, and that's not good. So maybe remove the phone from the bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's some of
Yeah.
my top tips.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, something I've been doing recently is putting my phone on airplane mode for the whole evening, and then sometime even just after I wake up as well. So that's a new evolution. We'll see how that goes, but I still use it as an alarm clock. If people want to see your previous running exploits, not currently, but if they want to follow up on you, what's the best place to reach them at? What's the best place for them to see you? And following that, what's the best place for companies and anyone who wants to recommend that their workplace do something for their well-being? How can they reach you?
Yeah, so the wellness movement is on Instagram, and my personal account on Instagram is Sha Hussain as well. So you can follow that. And if you're interested in the running and the mental health aspect for that, Be More You on Instagram. That's the best place to find us.
Yeah, well, keep doing the sensational work that you're doing, not only bringing it out to large groups of people through their organizations, but also running communities and you being a living example. So credit to you and keep it up.
Thank you, Sheri, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Shel. Thanks for listening to Therapy Lab. To find private, affordable therapy in person around the UK or online by video from around the world, visit harleytherapy.com today to start therapy as soon as tomorrow. If this is your first listen to Therapy Lab, do hit subscribe to keep up to date with new episodes. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, and all good platforms.